Start off, I'm Jeff Jack and I'm chair of Better Austin Today Political Action Committee. In 2007, a number of folks in the community came together to create the PAC. It brought together neighborhood associations, environmental activists, social equity advocates, and folks that were concerned about local and small businesses. Our mission is to find, support, and get elected good candidates to City Council. You know, we have a wonderful city. There are many, many great things about Austin, Texas. We have scenic beauty. We have the Colorado River and Lady Bird Lake. We have the foot of the hill country. We've got a rich cultural diversity and a caring city full of people that give a lot to the needy in our community. We have great learning institutions, University of Texas, Houston-Tillotson, great AISD schools. We have the mix of the arts, the music, and this weekend we have the Food and Wine Festival in Auditorium Shores, bringing people from all over the country here. We're wonderful. We're on the top 10 list for so many things. But Austin reminds me of the title to one of Charles Dickens' novels, A Tale of Two Cities. Because we have another city that's not talked about as much. A city where 20% of our children are in poverty, where 50% of our kids in AISD are qualified for breakfast and lunch programs, where wage levels are stagnating. Austin growth is looking at, economic growth is looking at service economy jobs in the future. We have traffic problems, we have environmental issues, we have neighborhood schools that are being threatened with closure all over town. What is the problem here? There seems to be two Austins emerging. What we need is leadership at the City Council to recognize this challenge of creating a city that it works for everybody. And that's why PAC is here today, to tell you why we're supporting these candidates for City Council. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Jason Meeker, and he's going to give you the lowdown on the candidates. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Better Austin Today is a political action committee on a mission to elect officials who are responsive and accountable to our community. Its members, we, are Austin residents from all parts of the city who work tirelessly as leaders in city government, in our neighborhoods and local and small businesses, in environmental causes, all fighting for social equity and other community issues. We are working for safer, more livable and truly affordable neighborhoods, for more cultural vitality, for more social responsibility, and a healthier environment. And to further our mission, we are so proud today, Better Austin Today is so proud to endorse Laura Pressley for Austin City Council Place 2 and Brigid Shea for Mayor of Austin. Yay! Better Austin Today was a major force in the election of Kathy Tobo to City Council and her defeat of Randy Shea not once but twice in the general election and in the runoff. And so our endorsement today has weight. Here's why we're endorsing Laura Pressley. She is a refreshing voice of change. She is a sincere candidate who isn't afraid to talk about the important issues facing Austin that have not been addressed over the last six years by the incumbent in place 2. She understands that traffic congestion, cost of living, employment opportunities, neighborhood protection, and the environment must all be dealt with now to ensure that our city will remain affordable and livable for those who are here today and for those who will be here in the future. Here are a few highlights why PAC endorses Ms. Pressley. She understands that traffic congestion will not be solved just by building new roads, and that some proposed new roads will actually make problems worse. She opposes SH 45 Southwest due to the environmental danger it poses and because it will add a tremendous amount of additional traffic in MOPAC. She is for fairness in dealing with environmental issues and sees that environmental issues in East Austin have not been accorded the same priority by our city as environmental concerns in West Austin, and she'll correct that. She believes in equal justice for all. She is concerned about the silence coming from City Hall with regard to police accountability on recent use of force issues. She sees the need for city leadership at City Hall. More leadership, better leadership, so Austin can stop talking about problems and actually start solving them. For these reasons and more, PAC endorses Laura Pressley and urges all voters to turn out and vote for her as the best candidate for Austin City Council Place 2.
Yay!
Brigid Shea also gets our endorsement for Mayor of Austin. She has the right experience, personal honesty, and integrity to lead Austin, and I am proud to call her a friend.
Yes.
We admire how Brigid Shea fights for causes she believes in. Her candidacy gives Austin voters a clear and positive alternative to what is now happening at City Hall. Ms. Shea's ability to deal with complex issues, build consensus on issues, and her maturity will be welcomed additions to City Council with no shortage of hot-button issues on future agendas. She understands that Austin already is an attractive place to move to, so new growth should not be subsidized. It should pay its own way and not be a burden on the existing residents and businesses. She will ensure that city policies always put affordability, tax fairness, and sound fiscal management as the top priorities in all matters before City Council. Here are a few more reasons why we endorse Ms. Shea. She opposes the ill-considered, willy-nilly corporate tax giveaways that seem to be acceptable to the current incumbent. Yet she understands the important role that the city plays in keeping our economy strong and believes that we need stringent financial analyses on how incentives will help our community before we give tax dollars away. To support our schools, Ms. Shea will provide the leadership to build a collaborative effort with AISD and other school districts to identify just what the city can do to keep our neighborhood schools open, safe, and successful. She is a strong supporter of small and local businesses as the backbone of a thriving economy in Austin. She believes in greater fiscal discipline to ensure that our city budget and debt stays, and especially the debt, stays within our means and does not put our future in financial jeopardy in uncertain economic times. Her environmental credentials reflect a balanced approach to protecting our natural resources as our city grows. For these reasons and many more, PAC strongly endorses Brigid Shea and urges all Austin voters to turn out and elect her as Austin's next mayor. And if there are any questions, we'll be happy to take those. Once you step up to the questions. Are you from the press, sir?
I am.
Do you have any questions?
Marty, right?
It's only me, huh?
Hey, I asked you for, your component, your opponent, Martinez, he's been giving money like to the Pachanga and to the, Fiesta Patrias. What would you do different?
That's a very good question, and I think the money was intended for scholarships, education programs for youth, and housing repairs, and it has not been used for that. So I think there's $125,000 still left in that fund, over $16 million that started in 1996. And so there's very few dollars left, but I would put them on scholarships. I've had so many people in East Austin tell me that their families, their nephews, and their children have been accepted to colleges, and they can't afford to go. And that's where the money should go. It should go to help raise us up and help these kids go to college, and that's where I would put the money.
You got my vote.
Thank you.
Dr. Pressley, what is your number one concern for the city, and how can you address that issue?
Number one concern, basically, I think is the affordability and how we are being developed out of Austin. Like Jack just said, and Jason said, there are two Austins that are happening, the haves and the have-nots, and we are developing people out. And I think these subsidies and subsidies to large corporations and subsidies to these developers, I've heard it said that we are mining Austin for money. These developers are mining Austin for money. They come here, they make their profit, and they leave, and we're stuck with the traffic issues and the affordability issues that this creates, and that to me is our number one issue.
Marty?
Sorry if you guys hit this in a couple minutes before I walked in. There's a couple of places where there is no endorsement at the moment. Do you care to explain why that is?
Sure. We looked at all four races. In several of the races, we felt like the incumbent, by their actions on the city council over the last 3 years, didn't warrant our endorsement. But unfortunately, we didn't find candidates that measured up with experience and positions that were also, significantly in line with that PAC, that we could endorse them either. So in those two races, we took no endorsement. But we did take endorsement in the mayor's race and in place two.
How much of the cost concern that seems to be one of the overarching issues here, how much can you break that down to government policy, and how much of that is just due to being a hot place where people who have the means to move here will?
That's a very good question. I'll put it to you this way. We don't know. But we also know that we haven't done any economic analysis to figure it out yet. We continue to do the same old, expecting a different result, and we don't get it. But we keep doing it over and over. So I think that what we're really looking for is a economic analysis that shows us whether the decisions that we're making at City Hall are actually appropriate for our future. And
Marty,
Brigid.
I'd like to answer a little bit of that as well. I think there are very specific actions of the council that have contributed to a rising cost of living in Austin. I've identified them, I've talked about them on the campaign trail, but I'll just do the highlights. In 2009, this mayor and council voted to change a long-held practice of requiring developers to pay their fair share for the very large extensions of very large water and sewer lines. And they made it a 100% reimbursement policy. And so what that means is that we're paying the more than $13 million plus to extend the very large water and sewer lines to the Formula One site. That will be one of my first priorities, to change that policy back. No other community in Central Texas has a 100% reimbursement policy. And when those city engineers were interviewed, some of them actually said, we wouldn't do that to our citizens. It's not fair to ask our citizens to pick up 100% of the cost of these large infrastructure extensions. That's just one example. We also have standard impact fees, water and wastewater hookup fees, that are dramatically lower than what the surrounding communities charge, and are lower than what it actually costs the city to provide that infrastructure service. By one estimate, if we had charged what we're legally allowed to charge, since 2004 we would have brought in an additional $100 million just to the water and wastewater utility. And we've had in the last decade a 100% increase in our water rates. And we're looking at another 19% increase in the next 4 years. I would absolutely push to raise those fees so that they begin to reflect the actual cost to the city. Instead of asking our citizens to pick up that cost of paying for new development. To me, there's a practice and an orientation at the city that has pushed the cost of development onto our citizens. The $4.3 million fee waiver to the Marriott Hotel. When we have such a great business climate, and we have such a lucrative downtown hotel market, we should not be paying hotels to come here. And the same week when the council was going to approve that $4.3 million fee waiver, another hotel appeared and said publicly, we'll come without any city subsidies. We're ready to come. I would have taken that offer, or I would at least have said, let's see if we can't get both of these without paying these hotels to come here. We had already made a substantial public investment in the downtown when we expanded the convention center in 1998, which I supported, because part of the argument was, we're missing out on big conventions, we don't have a big enough center, let's expand it, bring more tourism dollars to town, they're clean dollars, they come here, spend money, and then leave without requiring us to build new roads, hire more police, and build more fire stations, and build more schools, and I supported it. But that was an enormous public investment, hundreds of millions of dollars, and we succeeded wildly. We now have many more tourists coming to town than we have hotel rooms to house them. So why are we paying hotels to come here? And the same year that we did that $4.3 million fee waiver, which would have been revenue to the general fund, the city told the citizens, I'm sorry, we don't have enough money to keep all your community pools open, so we're gonna have to close some. And I'm sorry, we don't have enough money to fully staff the libraries and keep them open for all the hours, so we're gonna have to cut them back. And I'm sorry, we don't have the money for the Trail of Lights, so we're gonna have to cancel that. That's another example of where we're shifting the costs onto the citizens and shorting them on city services. So these are practices that I think are causing the quality of life in Austin to decline and are contributing to Austin becoming less and less affordable. Many, many families have told me that they are literally calculating the number of years that they can afford to stay in Austin because of the continual 10% increase every year in their property tax rates. And that's because the appraisals have gone up so much. We've also just released information on that. There is an enormous lopsided disparity in how the appraisals have weighted on the different categories of property taxpayers. The residential property taxpayers have seen a 110% increase in their appraisals in the last 10 years, where the property owners who own raw land have seen a 7% decrease in that same time period. Commercial property owners have only seen a 43% increase. There is a lot the city can do about that. Lee spends a lot of time on the campaign trail saying how much power he doesn't have and what he can't do. And I say the mayor's office is as powerful as the person who's in it. I will not spend my days focusing on what I can't do. I will go out and work with people across this community to try and keep Austin more affordable and to use the actual power in the mayor's office to get things done. Thank you.
Yeah, Bob,
Marty, any other question?
Yeah, one more if y'all have a second more,
Sure.
so I don't mean to hold you up too long. There are some people on the other side of this who say essentially that one of the reasons that Austin's getting more expensive is because it's hard to build here, that there are too many restrictions on what you can build and where. What do you make of that? And it's basically supply and demand overheats it.
Well, you know, as an architect, I'm fortunate I have done projects all over the United States. And the cost of doing something in Austin is not nearly what it is in New York City or even Anchorage, Alaska, or Huntington Beach, Florida. Yes, it's expensive, but then we have something to protect. Other places that have less regulatory rules, they don't care if you cut down heritage trees. They don't care if you cut and fill, you know, tremendous swaths of land. We care about our environment. So there are rules, and they're there to help keep Austin's unique quality. And it takes a little bit more time to deal with them. But if you look at a development performer, you realize that the regulatory environment is a small percentage of the cost of development. It really is. Land cost and construction cost are the two biggest issues. And one of the ironies is that in Austin, Texas, as we give more entitlements to land, the land value go up. That makes it necessary to build bigger buildings, higher buildings. High-rise construction is much more expensive. So you have a sort of snake eating its tail, that you've created a dynamic where the cost is actually exacerbated by the increase in the density that you're trying to accomplish. So I think there's a lot of mythology about the issue of what the supply and demand curve really looks like in Austin. And I don't agree with the fact that the regulatory environment is one of the big problems that we have.
Laura, Brigid, maybe.
Yeah, I want to take a bite of that as
Sure.
well. The thing that I hear most from people in the development community is the length of time that it takes to get applications through the process. And I know that the staffing level is chronically understaffed in these departments. And to me, that's a management issue. I mean, we should be able to properly staff city departments to be able to handle what comes in. We're not meeting our own laws on how quickly these permits need to be processed. And I think that's a huge contributing factor. But we are an appealing place to live. We see that by all these top 10 lists and all the numbers. But I also think that the cost of living, the cost of utilities, property taxes is a factor that people look at when they decide where they're going to build. And you can see in the census numbers in the last 10 years, from 2000 to 2010, 71% of the people who moved into the Central Texas area moved outside of Austin. So I think that we can improve our permitting process, but we also need to really address the affordability issue if we don't want to continue to squeeze middle-class families out of Austin. Or anyone comment?
You know, I've had emails from supporters, new voters that are never voted in city council elections before, and they've emailed me and said, you know, I knew something was wrong in Austin, but I didn't know what. And so now we have, Brigid and I both, and several of the other candidates have exposed what's really going on. Just look at what's happening. We have these huge high-rises in Austin, downtown. Development is booming. Our electric rates are going up, our water rates are going up. Again, we don't have these services, hours for libraries, the Zilker Patrol Acts, we've said this. So something's broken. You know, you look at the big picture, and these incumbents say, well, all these transactions, these subsidies to developers, subsidies to the large corporations are cash positive. Well, I'm gonna challenge that, because we have this huge amount of development. The citizens aren't seeing the benefit of this. Austin Energy is bleeding $2 million a week. They're $100 million down in what they need to transfer to the general fund. Water utility rates are going up, and our tax rates, our property tax rates are looking to go up. Something's broken. And I think we have exposed what's going on. Citizens know there's a problem, they just don't know exactly what the problem is, and we've shown them. Thank you.
And they can vote.
And they can vote. And I'll tell you what, I believe there are gonna be more people voting in this election than we've seen in the past. Because people are frustrated, they're angry, and they wanna change. They're tired of the direction. They wanna change.
Any other questions, Marty?
I'm good with all.
Yeah.
Actually, I did have a quick thing I wanted to say about the property tax
Sure.
rates. Again, on the campaign trail, Lee has talked about what he can't do. I have said, and I will push for this, to really analyze whether or not we could consider a homestead exemption for residential property taxpayers across the city of Austin. Currently, the city of Austin only has an exemption for the over 65 and disabled. And I want us to really take a hard look at it, because there's such a dramatic imbalance between the residential appraisal rates and all the other categories of property tax appraisals. But furthermore, I would convene a summit. I've been in contact with tax experts and asking, what else could we do? What other relief could we provide citizens? And I've gotten some very interesting ideas from some of these experts. I would convene a summit of tax and finance experts to really take a hard look at what we could do that would be responsible for our budget, but would also start to cushion people against these skyrocketing appraisals and impacts to their property taxes. We've got to take that kind of initiative. We can't just throw up our hands and say, oh, well, there's nothing we can do.
Marty, one last comment about your question.
Yeah.
You know, when we have incentive packages that we give to businesses to come to Austin, we talk about the jobs that they're going to be creating. But what we haven't been very sophisticated in is making sure those jobs are filled by people that live here in Austin today.
That's right.
And if we target industries that bring jobs that require a PhD in mathematics from MIT, that's going to relocate from Palo Alto, that doesn't help our local situation of the under and unemployed. So we have to be a lot more sophisticated in how we deal with job creation. And I think that one of the big problems about supply and demand, that if you have a big corporation that comes here with a lot of high-paid executives or upper-level management that are making very good salaries in some place like Boston or Minneapolis, and they bring that same salary here, they bid up everything in Austin. They bid up the housing, they bid up the real estate, and it's a cumulative effect. So I think we need to be a lot more sophisticated in targeting what kind of businesses we need to bring to provide jobs for the people that need them here today. Folks, we really appreciate everybody coming
I can
out.
underscore what you just said, and I'll keep it really
Okay.
brief. Part